Ladies and gentlemen, she waited. She waited when everyone else said, move on. She waited when the clock kept ticking and the world kept rushing and nothing made sense. She waited when her heart was tired, her eyes were weary, and her prayers felt like echoes in an empty room. But hear me when I say this, she didn't wait in weakness. She waited in strength. You see, it's easy to run. It's easy to chase after what the world says you need. But this woman, she had something the world couldn't understand. She had faith, real faith, real faith. The kind of faith that holds on when everything around you is falling apart. People thought she was foolish. They said, why are you still believing? Why are you still hoping? But what they didn't know, what they couldn't see, was that God had already set the time. Not their time, not her time, but his time. Now listen closely, because this is where the story shifts. When God moved, he didn't just give her what she asked for. He gave her more. He didn't just answer her prayer. He exceeded it. He didn't just open the door. He built a whole house behind it. And the same people who once pitied her, they stood in awe, not of her strength, but of the God who honored her patience. This is what I want you to understand. Waiting doesn't mean God is punishing you. Waiting doesn't mean he forgot about you. It means he's working. It means he's protecting what he promised you. Because when God gives, he gives with no sorrow, no strings, just purpose. She waited. And when it came, it was worth every tear, every prayer, every sleepless night, because God is never late, never off schedule. He was writing a story, a divine masterpiece. And when the last page turned, it was more beautiful than she could have imagined. So let them laugh. Let them doubt. You don't need validation from people when you have confirmation from God. Stand still. Trust the process. Wait with boldness. Because what happened to her can happen to you. And when it does, it will amaze you. Waiting is not wasting. It's preparation. This truth often goes unnoticed in a world that measures worth by productivity and speed. We live in a culture obsessed with quick results, instant gratification, and overnight success. But God doesn't operate on human timelines. He's not rushing to meet our deadlines. When God calls us to wait, it is not because he is withholding something good from us. It is because he is preparing something far greater than we can imagine, and he's preparing us to carry it. Every moment spent in waiting is an investment into who we are becoming, not a loss of time. Waiting builds patience, and patience refines character. The wait is where trust is born, where faith deepens, and where hearts are shaped. When you're in the waiting room of life, it may feel like everything is still, like progress is halted, like God is silent. But that stillness is not inactivity. It's sacred ground. Just like a seed beneath the soil goes unseen while its roots grow deep, you two are being strengthened in the places no one sees. God is working underground, beneath the surface of your story, growing something that will eventually break through in beauty and power. Many people mistake delay for denial. They assume that if something hasn't happened yet, it's never going to happen. But God doesn't forget his promises. He doesn't ignore your prayers. Instead, he's waiting for the fullness of time, his time, his time. Because if God were to give you what you asked for before you're ready, it could crush you instead of bless you. Preparation ensures that when the door opens, you can walk through it with wisdom, strength, and the maturity needed to sustain what's on the other side. Think of a butterfly in a cocoon. The struggle inside that dark place is necessary for its wings to form. If someone cuts the cocoon open too early, the butterfly may emerge but will never fly. In the same way, your waiting season is forming your wings. It is making you ready to soar when the time comes. The pressure, the stillness, the uncertainty, it's all part of the process. And though it may be painful, it's never purposeless. God uses waiting seasons to strip away distractions and dependencies. He allows us to let go of idols, pride, and shallow ambitions. He gets our attention when everything else grows quiet. In those moments, he teaches us to lean on him, not on our plans, our timelines, or our own understanding. We learn to listen more deeply, to see more clearly, and to rely on his voice above all others. The waiting teaches us that the blessing is not just the breakthrough, but the closeness we gain with God along the way. Waiting also reveals motives. Sometimes we ask for things from a place of ego or insecurity, not realizing that we're not yet equipped to handle the responsibility. But as we wait, God purifies our desires. He aligns our hearts with his will. What we wanted before may not even matter to us later, because we've grown, matured, and learned what truly counts. The wait refines us. It humbles us. It trains us in ways success never could. We often look at waiting as a passive season, but in truth, it can be the most active and dynamic time of our lives. Waiting doesn't mean sitting still with folded hands. It means working, growing, serving, praying, studying, and becoming. It's about doing the next right thing with excellence, knowing that God sees your faithfulness in small beginnings. David was anointed king, but returned to the field to tend sheep. Joseph had dreams of leadership, but was thrown into a pit and sold into slavery. Their waiting wasn't wasted. It was shaping them into leaders who could carry the weight of their calling. Every moment of silence, every closed door, every unanswered prayer is a chance to be refined. God doesn't rush preparation. He takes his time because he's building something eternal, not temporary. He's not just working on your circumstances, he's working on you. And sometimes the transformation happening inside is more important than the opportunity you're waiting for on the outside. You may think nothing is happening, but heaven is moving in ways you cannot see. Angels are being assigned, doors are being aligned, hearts are being softened, timing is being perfected. Don't despise the season you're in. Don't believe the lie that you've been overlooked or forgotten. Waiting is not punishment, it's positioning. It means God values you enough to prepare you. If he didn't care, he would rush you into something before you're ready. But he loves you too much for that. He's more concerned with your destiny than your comfort. He's more invested in your becoming than in giving you what you want too soon. Think of all the people in Scripture who waited. Abraham waited decades for Isaac. Moses waited in the wilderness. Jesus himself waited 30 years before beginning his public ministry. None of these waits were wasted. In fact, they were necessary for the fullness of God's plan to unfold. And what God did through them, he can do through you. Your waiting is part of a divine timeline, a holy process, a preparation that carries eternal significance. So instead of asking a how long, begin to ask, what are you preparing me for? Change the narrative from frustration to formation. Let the waiting grow you, not break you. Let it deepen your faith rather than weaken your hope. Waiting is a hidden blessing. It is sacred soil. It is the proving ground where greatness is born and destiny is shaped. Your waiting is not in vain. It is your preparation. And preparation is never a waste. Yates Pretty said, God's silence doesn't mean his absence. There are moments in life when it feels like the heavens are closed, when prayers seem to echo back unanswered, when you search for signs and find none, and when the only thing louder than your cries is the silence that follows. In these moments, it's easy to believe that God is withdrawn, that he's distant or even indifferent. But the truth is, his silence is not abandonment. Silence can be sacred. Silence can be strategic. Silence in the hands of God is never without meaning. We often associate God's presence with feelings, goosebumps, emotional highs, powerful moments in worship, or tangible breakthroughs. But God is not limited to the realm of emotion. His presence is not dependent on our perception. Just because you don't feel him doesn't mean he isn't there. Feelings fluctuate, emotions lie. But God remains constant. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Even in silence, he is fully present, fully aware, and fully involved. In fact, some of the greatest faith ever demonstrated was in response to divine silence. Consider Job, a man who lost everything, his wealth, his children, his health, and was met not with immediate answers, but with prolonged silence. He cried out, questioned, lamented, and wrestled with the seeming absence of God. Yet despite the silence, he never walked alone. God was there watching, allowing the testing of his faith to reveal the depth of his trust. There's something about silence that reveals the true condition of our hearts. When the noise is stripped away, when the emotional support is quieted, when we're left with only our raw questions, that's when what we truly believe surfaces. It's easy to have faith when God is speaking, when he's answering, when he's performing miracles. But what about when he's quiet? What about when we don't understand? That's where faith becomes real. That's where intimacy deepens, not through feelings, but through trust. God's silence is never pointless. Sometimes he is quiet because he is teaching. Just as a teacher remains silent during a test, God allows silence so that we can demonstrate what we've learned. It is in the testing that our faith matures. We remember what he said before. We lean into his promises. We recall his faithfulness. The silence isn't God turning away. It's him giving us the space to grow, to stand, and to believe even when we cannot see. There are times when his silence is a form of protection. If he were to reveal everything, all at once, it might overwhelm us. If he answered too quickly, we might rely on the answer more than the one who gives it. God withholds information not to frustrate us, but to form us. He trains us to walk by faith, not by sight. He cultivates spiritual muscles in the silence, patience, resilience, endurance. These are not built in seasons of abundance, but in moments of mystery. Jesus himself experienced divine silence. In the Garden of Gethsemane, he prayed in agony, asking if the cup of suffering could pass from him. Heaven was silent. On the cross, he cried out, "Oh my God, why have you forsaken me?" Again, silence. But even then, God had not turned away. The silence was not a sign of rejection, but the unfolding of a divine plan. Redemption was happening in the quiet. Salvation was being secured in the dark. And after the silence came resurrection. This is the pattern of God. He is often silent in the middle, but he always speaks again. He always shows up. He always finishes what he starts. The silence is never the end of the story. It's just a chapter where trust is tested and character is forged. It's in the silence that roots grow deeper, that faith becomes anchored not in outcomes, but in the unchanging nature of who God is. We also must understand that God speaks in ways we may not expect. His silence to our ears may be him speaking through circumstances, through closed doors, through the gentle nudges of the Spirit. Sometimes we're looking for thunder when he's whispering. Sometimes we're looking for a sign when he's already given his word. And sometimes we want a new word when what we really need is to stand on what he's already spoken. The silence invites us to search, to press in, to listen with our spirit, not just with our emotions. It causes us to ask deeper questions, to seek with more intensity, to knock with persistence. In doing so, we draw nearer. We become more sensitive, more attuned, more surrendered. God may be silent, but he's not idle. His silence is an invitation, not a rejection. In the silence, we learn to wait, not with anxiety, but with anticipation. We begin to see that waiting is not wasted time, but divine alignment. We come to understand that silence is not about absence, but about attention. God is watching, listening, orchestrating. He is never off duty. He never sleeps. He never takes a break from being involved in our lives. Every moment of silence is filled with divine activity we cannot yet perceive. Sometimes God is silent because we're not ready for what he's about to say. He waits until our hearts are postured correctly, until we're willing to listen and obey. Other times, his silence is a call for us to rest, not to strive for answers, but to be still and know, to cease striving and trust that he is God, even when we can't hear him clearly. In our desperation for answers, we must not miss the invitation to intimacy. God's silence is often an open door to a deeper walk with him. It's in those moments of quiet that we realize he is enough, not his gifts, not his miracles, not his answers, just him. That realization is worth more than anything we could ask for. When we reach the point where his presence is our reward, the silence loses its sting. God may be silent, but he is never absent. He is present in your tears. He is close to the brokenhearted. He bottles every sorrow, knows every fear, and counts every moment. His silence does not mean he has forgotten you. It means he is at work in ways you cannot yet see. The God who spoke the world into existence does not waste his words. When he speaks again, it will be worth the wait. But until then, hold on. He is closer than you think. Faith isn't proven when everything is easy. It's proven in the wait. Anyone can believe when the blessings are flowing, when doors are opening, when prayers are being answered instantly. It doesn't take much strength to trust when everything is going according to plan, when the path is clear, and when results come quickly. But true faith, enduring faith, the kind of faith that pleases God, is not measured by how we respond when life is comfortable. It's measured by how we respond when life is quiet, uncertain, and delayed. The waiting season is a testing ground. It exposes what we really believe. It brings our internal struggles to the surface. In the wait, doubts whisper louder, fears creep in, and the temptation to give up grows stronger. It's in this space that faith is either forged or forgotten. It's not the mountaintop moments that shape the strength of your belief. It's the valleys where you can't see ahead, where nothing makes sense, and where you have to walk blindly trusting that God is still leading the way. Faith in the wait means believing when the evidence says otherwise. It means waking up every day and choosing to trust even when nothing has changed. It's showing up in prayer even when heaven seems silent. It's opening your Bible when the words feel dry. It's choosing to worship with tears in your eyes. This kind of faith doesn't look flashy. It doesn't draw crowds. It doesn't always feel powerful, but it's real and it's rare and it moves the heart of God. In the waiting, we discover whether our faith is based on results or rooted in relationship. If we only trust God when He gives us what we want, then our faith is conditional. But if we can trust Him when the blessings are delayed, when the promise is still distant, when we don't understand what He's doing, then that's faith refined by fire. That's faith that has gone through the test and come out purer and stronger on the other side. Many people give up in the wait because they mistake delay for denial. They believe the lie that if it hasn't happened yet, it won't happen at all. But God doesn't operate on our deadlines. His timing is not our timing. What feels like a pause to us is often God's perfect plan unfolding step by step. We want to fast forward through the process, but God is more interested in forming us than in speeding things up. The wait is where we grow. It's where pride is stripped away. It's where dependency on God is deepened. Look at Abraham, who waited decades for the child God promised. Look at Joseph, who spent years in a pit and a prison before seeing his dreams fulfilled. Look at Hannah, who wept year after year before God opened her womb. Look at David, who was anointed king, but returned to tend sheep and waited years before sitting on the throne. Their faith was proven not by what they eventually received, but by how they trusted while they waited. They held on, they believed. They didn't always understand, but they didn't let go. Faith in the wait means choosing surrender over control. It's easy to want to take matters into our own hands, to make things happen in our own strength, to force doors open that God has shut. But real faith lets go of the need to manipulate outcomes. It says, God, I trust you even if I don't see how this will work out. And this will work out. I trust your heart when I can't trace your hand. That kind of faith is costly. It requires death to self. It requires a willingness to be uncomfortable, to be misunderstood, and to wait longer than you planned. There is a refining that happens in the wait. You begin to see what really matters. Your priorities shift. You learn to appreciate the little things. You stop striving and start resting. You grow more sensitive to God's voice. You let go of timelines and cling to truth. And in the process, you are being prepared for the very thing you are believing for. The wait is not just about the outcome. It's about the transformation happening within you. We live in a world that praises instant success and immediate answers. But the kingdom of God often works in slow, hidden ways. Seeds planted take time to grow. Trees take years to bear fruit. The most meaningful promises are often those that require the longest waits. And those who are willing to endure with faith are the ones who see the fullness of what God intended. Faith in the wait means you choose hope even when disappointment knocks at your door. It means you don't let bitterness take root. It means you guard your heart against comparison when others seem to get their breakthrough before you. It means you rejoice with those who rejoice, even when your own prayers feel unanswered. That's not easy, but that's real faith. It's faith that rests in God's goodness, not in the goodness of circumstances. God is never late, but He is rarely early. He arrives at the exact moment that brings the most glory to Him and the most growth for you. And when He moves, it all makes sense. You'll see how every closed door was protection. You'll understand why you had to wait. You'll realize that the delay wasn't punishment. It was preparation. And your faith, tested and tried in the wait, will become your testimony. So don't despise the waiting season. It's holy ground. It's where faith is proven. It's where you learn that God is enough, not the answer, not the outcome, just Him. And when you learn to love Him in the silence, to serve Him in the dark, to believe Him when nothing is visible, that's when your faith becomes unshakable. That's when you're ready to receive what He's been preparing all along, God. In the end, everything we've walked through, the waiting, the silence, the tests of faith, has not been in vain. Each season was a setup, not a setback. The delays were divine, the silence was sacred, and the wait was worth it. God was never absent, never late, and never unaware. He was working in the background, shaping your character, deepening your trust, and preparing you for a blessing far greater than you imagined. Faith isn't proven when life is easy. It's proven when you hold on, when you keep believing, and when you trust even without answers. You are not forgotten. You are not being overlooked. You are being refined for something that can only be carried by someone who has walked through the fire and still chosen to believe. God's timing is perfect. His silence has purpose. And your wait has power. Keep standing. Keep trusting. Because what God has promised, he will perform. And when he does, it will be beautiful in its time.